At my wedding in Chicago, my dad called my startup a phase. Then he asked for the microphone. The ballroom overlooked the river, all glass and late summer light. Waiters moved between round tables carrying plates of fillet and roasted vegetables. The band had just finished a slow jazz set when the MIC gave a brief pulse of feedback and settled. My father stood near the head table, cufflinks catching the light, posture relaxed in the way it only is when someone assumes the room belongs to them. "I'm proud of her," he began, nodding toward me. "She's always had ideas. Big ones. Expensive ones." A ripple of polite laughter moved across the tables. He smiled, patient. "But I'm relieved she's finally chosen something stable. Marriage will ground her. This startup phase," he paused deliberately, "it was ambitious. We all have phases in our 20s. A few of his golf partners laughed openly. Someone clinked a glass in approval. The air conditioning hummed steadily above us, indifferent to hierarchy. "Entrepreneurship is expensive optimism," he continued. "Family is real equity." My co-founder, Daniel, seated beside two early investors near the back, did not react. He simply adjusted his tie and watched. My husband's hand rested calmly over mine beneath the tablecloth. I did not defend myself. I did not flinch. I let the moment sit exactly as he intended it to. They didn't realize something had already changed. Being underestimated has a particular texture. It isn't loud. It isn't aggressive. It is almost affectionate. It sounds like advice. It looks like concern. My father had never raised his voice about my company. He didn't need to. He framed it gently, as a temporary experiment orbiting a more stable life. I had grown used to that framing. At family dinners, I was introduced as trying something in tech. At board events for his firm, I was described as creative. The adjectives were always polite and always diminishing. Have you ever noticed how easily competence becomes invisible when it doesn't match someone else's definition of security? If you understand quiet resilience, the kind that doesn't argue but keeps building, you can subscribe. It helps this space grow steadily. And if you've ever been described as a phase, I'm curious what that felt like for you. You can share it in the comments. I learned early that correction rarely changes perception. Results do. Today wasn't like the others. My father built a mid-sized logistics firm over 30 years. Not flashy, but reliable. Government contracts. Long-term vendor relationships. Predictable revenue. In our family, predictability was virtue. He spoke first at every gathering. My mother reinforced his conclusions with warmth. My older brother worked in the firm and mirrored my father's tone in smaller rooms. I was the reasonable one. The one who kept schedules. Who handled digital transitions when the company needed them. Who explained new compliance portals. Who formatted proposals when formatting mattered more than anyone admitted. I was trusted with tasks, not direction. Two memories repeat often. The first, I was 23, sitting at the dining table with my laptop open, rebuilding their vendor tracking system after it crashed. My father paced behind me on a call, telling a client, "My daughter's good with these small things." Small things. The second, a holiday dinner where my brother described a contract negotiation in dramatic detail. When someone asked about my company, my father answered for me. "It's early," he said. "We'll see if it sticks." The room moved on. Hierarchy in our family wasn't enforced through intimidation. It was maintained through narrative. He was the builder. My brother was the successor. I was the capable helper with experimental hobbies. They assumed compliance was permanent. Before launching my startup, I had spent 2 years consulting quietly, often for firms like my father's. I handled back-end systems, vendor integrations, contract digitization, compliance mapping, the kind of work that rarely appears in annual reports but determines whether revenue flows or stalls. When my father's firm transitioned to a new procurement platform, I was the one who read the 30-page vendor agreement and highlighted the clauses that actually mattered. No one else wanted to read it. I scheduled calls with third-party providers. I organized document repositories. I tracked renewal dates. It was clerical, in their view. But access accumulates perspective. You begin to see where margins hide. Which vendors are indispensable? Which contracts auto-renew quietly? Which partnerships are legacy habits rather than strategic decisions? My startup began in that space. We built procurement optimization software for mid-sized logistics firms, automated compliance verification, dynamic vendor bidding, real-time cost comparisons. It wasn't glamorous. It was structural. I knew the bylaws of my father's firm. I understood their board composition. I knew which contracts required competitive rebidding every 3 years and which could be reassigned through acquisition clauses. Knowledge like that does not feel powerful at first. It feels administrative. Access teaches you what authority often ignores. 3 months before my wedding, a regional competitor to my father's firm, Anderson Freight Solutions, quietly signaled distress. They held a series of mid-tier government transport contracts my father had attempted to win twice. Their technology infrastructure was outdated. Their compliance record had minor flags. Their board wanted an exit before penalties accumulated. My co-founder brought it to me as a data opportunity. I saw something else. Anderson's vendor management system was deeply inefficient. Our platform could reduce their operating overhead by 18% within the first quarter. But more importantly, buried in one of their largest contracts was a reassignment clause triggered by majority acquisition. If a controlling stake transferred, the primary technology oversight contract could be renegotiated. My father's firm had recently bid on that oversight role and lost. We began conversations quietly. There was no dramatic negotiation. Just spreadsheets, due diligence calls, and careful financing. Our investors believed in the margin improvement potential. By the time I walked down the aisle, we were in final documentation. 2 weeks after the wedding, the acquisition closed. We purchased a 62% controlling interest in Anderson Freight Solutions. The oversight contract, previously inaccessible to my father's firm, now sat under our governance. We initiated a performance review clause. Within 6 weeks, our platform was integrated. Within 3 months, compliance metrics improved measurably. Industry press noticed. By the time we gathered that evening 8 months later for a family dinner my father requested, the structure had already changed. The dinner took place at my parents' home, the same long teak table polished to a reflective shine. My father poured wine personally, a gesture of hospitality, but also control. He began with updates about market volatility, rising fuel costs, the importance of steady leadership. Legacy businesses survive because they don't chase trends, he said, slicing his steak with precision. Experience matters. Responsibility matters. He glanced at me briefly. Some industries are learning that the hard way. My brother nodded. My father continued. We recently bid on the Anderson oversight contract again. Strong proposal. Strong numbers. But the board is unpredictable these days. He leaned back. Still, stability wins in the long run. He looked around the table. Anyone want to add something? I set my fork down beside my plate. Actually, I said evenly, Anderson's board isn't unpredictable anymore. My father's expression remained patient. I reached into my bag and removed a slim folder. No theatrics. Just documentation. We acquired a 62% controlling stake in March, I continued. The reassignment clause under Section 14.2 allowed us to review and restructure the oversight contract. Silence settled gradually. My brother frowned slightly. We weren't informed of any change in ownership. The announcement was filed with the regional registry, I replied. Public record. I turned the folder toward my father. The oversight contract your firm bid on now reports through our governance structure. Final approvals route through my office. He scanned the letterhead. Then my name beneath the title, Chief Executive Officer. No one spoke. The dessert plates remained untouched. My mother adjusted her napkin carefully, as if alignment might restore equilibrium. My brother reached for his phone. The screen lit his face briefly before he set it face down again. My father cleared his throat. That's ambitious, he said. Not dismissive this time. Measured. He reviewed the valuation summary page. His eyes paused at the revenue projections. You financed this independently? Yes, I answered. A quiet recalculation moved across the table. This was no longer a hobby. No longer creative optimism. It was leverage. No one raised their voice. No accusations surfaced. Just the slow recognition that the hierarchy described at my wedding no longer aligned with reality. After dinner, my father asked if we could speak in his office. The door closed softly behind us. He remained standing for a moment, then gestured toward the chair opposite his desk. You should have told me, he began. It wasn't confidential, I replied. He studied me differently now, not indulgent, not corrective. Evaluative. This contract is significant for us, he said. Our firm depends on expansion this quarter. There it was. Dependency, framed as information. Performance metrics will determine continuation, I said calmly. The review process is standardized. He nodded once. Testing the boundary. And your role in final approval? Primary signatory, I answered. He exhaled slowly. No anger. No raised voice. Just adjustment. The following week, formal notices were distributed. Vendor communications were redirected through our compliance portal. Board confirmations were updated to reflect new oversight channels. My father's firm received a standardized performance review schedule, identical to every other bidder. No special language. No penalties. Just procedure. When his operations manager emailed requesting clarification, my team responded within the hour. Professional. Neutral. Authority had shifted, not emotionally but structurally. That night, after leaving my father's office, I returned briefly to the dining room. Conversation had resumed, softer now. I placed my napkin neatly beside my plate. Collected my coat from the hallway. My mother hugged me lightly. My brother nodded once. My father walked me to the door. We'll review the proposal thoroughly, he said. Of course, I replied. The porch light cast long shadows across the driveway. I stepped into the evening air, closed the car door gently, and drove home. I didn't need the microphone. Authority is often confused with volume, with speeches, with titles repeated aloud. But control is quieter. It lives in documents filed correctly, in clauses understood, in timing that does not require applause. At my wedding, my father believed stability meant proximity to tradition. He believed phases expired naturally. What he did not account for was structural patience. Underestimation creates space. When no one is watching closely, you are free to build precisely. I do not resent him for the comment. It revealed the narrative he needed to maintain. But narratives do not govern contracts. Ownership does. The room shifted that evening not because I argued, but because the record already reflected a different reality. Respect, I've learned, is rarely requested successfully. It is observed after the fact. My company continues to grow. My father's firm continues to operate. Our interactions are measured now. Professional. Balanced. The word phase hasn't resurfaced. Control doesn't announce itself. It simply updates the record.